Sydney. Thank you so much for being here today. Before we get started with any questions, can you just tell us a little about yourself or just something about you, just in general?
Hi, I'm Sydney Godwin. I'm a senior at Columbus High School. I enjoy reading and painting in my spare time, and I'm on the swim team, the speech and debate team, and the robotics team.
Okay, so can you tell us a little more about what you do in robotics?
I actually do a little bit of everything at robotics. During the FTC season, which, if you didn't know, our robotics team actually does two competitions, the first tech challenge as well as the first robotics challenge. The difference between them is that just FTC has smaller robots. But anyways, during the FTC season, I'm a mentor for Team Ecliptic, which generally means I do things like help them stay on task or help them fix problems with their code. But when I'm not doing that, I'm actually the lead brand manager for our FRC team, and sometimes I help them program too.
That's so cool. So, Sydney, what initially prompted you to want to join robotics in the first place?
I had actually gone to their interest meeting, and they did the whole big show with the robot, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. But what gained my attention really was they talked about how they were looking for driven students, and that if they could find driven students, they were willing to teach them on whatever subject they needed for robotics. And for me, I was wanting to learn more about programming, and so that's how I got involved.
That's really interesting. So, what's the greatest challenge with robotics, in your opinion, and what solution did you or your team come up with to combat that?
So I think the biggest challenge is really communication. A lot of the teams have problems talking to each other, and I know in the FBC teams, a lot of people come up with great ideas, but they don't communicate well to other teammates about what they're doing. And so a lot of times during the build season, things fall through and it causes a lot of discourse. And I know they came up with a solution to this, which was pretty much just having meetings, which sounds really basic, but it helped out so much. By having meetings at the beginning of like when they all got there, they could talk about what they were going to do for that day and then plan it out so that everybody knew what was happening and nobody was left in the dark.
Gotcha. So I guess that kind of leads into my next question, which is, besides communication, which I know is like the greatest issue, is there any other, or what other skills would you say are needed to be an effective team member in robotics?
Oh, okay. To be an effective team member, I'd say you have to be not only good at communicating, but also probably driven just to keep on top of like the workload they give you in the club, as well as organized. Because a lot of the team members I know don't just do robotics. And so to keep on top of robotics, as well as their other clubs, you have to keep on top of your time. Because I know personally that robotics takes up so much time. Like I'm there most days, but if you keep your time managed well, it actually works out pretty well. And
Okay.
so when like looking at team members, I'd say be organized.
Okay. So, can you tell us about your work with coding in robotics?
Okay. I actually did most of my coding with the FTC teams. So that was pretty much just smaller mechanisms and just one big program. Whereas if you look at like the FRC teams and the bigger robots, you'll have like subsystems within the coding, which means like each part of the robot will have its own program, which is then referenced in like the final program. And it's a lot more complicated than that, but if I was going to talk about what I've done coding experience, most of it has been with FEC, but I have worked on some of the subsystems.
Yeah, I find it really interesting that you're so driven about this and like you love robotics and everything. But in your opinion, as someone who is not in robotics and I don't know like any of the science or any of the mechanics behind it, what would you say the significance of it is in school and as a society as a whole?
I think the significance is that it really helps with team building as like in the workforce. because we follow a lot of the same structures that most STEM careers use. For example, we use 5S, which is an organizational system used by most companies, which is actually where we got it from. But it introduces you to concepts like that you're going to see outside of high school. And so I think it's really important to introduce like high schoolers into things they may see later on in the STEM careers.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, besides robotics, are you currently working on any other projects right now?
I'm actually working on a DIY coding project. I don't know if you've seen this advertised before, but it's basically a smart mirror, and it has like a mirror, but behind it there'll be a display, and it'll show like things like the weather or your calendar and stuff. And so I've been working on creating my own.
Yeah, how's that going for you? Like the progress? Do you enjoy it?
I do enjoy it actually. Some of the more like building it part has been a little tricky since I don't have a workshop or anything. But the actual coding has been fun. You can really customize it to show whatever you want on the screen, and so I've been interested in that.
Yeah, that sounds so cool to me. Is there any advice that you would have to somebody who is currently interested in robotics? And I know that this is a very male-dominated field. So is there anything that you would specifically say to girls who are interested in robotics?
For girls especially, I would try and tell them I would say don't let people undermine your knowledge, really. A lot of people will come out and talk about loads of different things and have a lot of interest in like very specific details of robotics. And so they'll try and make you feel like you don't know the subject or that you haven't done as much as they have. And I'd say don't let that bog you down. Some people are just really interested in certain things. But it's always good to know that you aren't worse or less than other people because of that. You just have a different perspective.
That's great advice. So, Sydney, you're a senior, so do you have what are your plans for the future?
I actually plan on majoring in computer science at Mercer University.
Oh, gotcha. Is there anything else that you would like to add, just in general?
I'd really just say have fun with stuff in STEM. A lot of people get so serious about it, but some of the things are just, you're in high school, go have fun with the team, you know?
Hey, that's great. Thank you so much, Sydney. We really appreciated you being here. Thank
you.
It was really great to hear what you had to say. So thank you.
Thank you so much for spending your time and just being here with us today.